Well, howdy everyone out there, how you doing? It's your host Brad, welcoming you back, and I know what you might be thinking. It's March, spring is in the air, love is blooming everywhere, and basketball is about to take over the national conversation. So today I'm going to go through the NCAA tournament making my predictions, and I'll be using two criteria. One, I'm going to pick the team that is blue. Blue will be the first criteria. If there's a blue team or a bluer team, they win automatically. Number two, my favorite animal is a dog, so I'm going to be picking any team that has a dog as a mascot. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in, shall we? Alright, so the first game we got in the East bracket is Duke versus North Dakota State. Duke is blue, North Dakota State's green. Easy win, Duke, although they probably will lose soon in the real tournament. Number two, we got VCU, they're the Rams versus UCF, they're the Golden Knights, they're both black and gold. Now I know what you might be thinking, Rams, they're a four-legged animal, they got fur, they're pretty close to a dog, right? Kind of, but a dog is actually closer emotionally to a human, and that's the criteria I'm going to use for this. So the humans win, UCF Golden Knights advance. Mississippi State versus Liberty. Now Mississippi State, they are a bulldog, but Liberty, they got blue, they advance. Virginia Tech versus St. Louis, again, St. Louis, they're the Billikens, which isn't a real thing. I guess it was a toy way back in the day. But they're blue, Virginia Tech, maroon, that's not even a real color, so St. Louis advances. Maryland versus Belmont, again, Belmont, blue, Maryland red, by Maryland. LSU versus Yale. Yale, they're blue and they're the Bulldogs. That might be pretty good for them coming up later. Yale advances. Louisville versus Minnesota. Now, they're both red. Minnesota's kind of a darker red. You could say their darker red is closer to blue, but I'm also going to say that Gopher is a mammal. Louisville, they're a cardinal, that's a bird. Mammal, closer to dog. Louisville, you're out. Minnesota, you advance. Michigan State versus Bradley. Bradley, unfortunately, is a good name, but they're red. Michigan State, green. Michigan State advances. Look at that east. Looks nice, doesn't it? Now let's move over to the south. You got Virginia versus Gardner-Webb. And Virginia, they're actually going to get to win their first game this year because they're blue. That's good for them. Ole Miss versus Oklahoma. Ole Miss, again, blue. Wisconsin, Oregon. Oregon, green. It's closer to blue than anything Wisconsin has, even though Wisconsin is a mammal. Kansas State versus UC Irvine. UC Irvine, they're the Anteaters, and they are blue. They're going to advance past Kansas State to the second round. Then you got Villanova versus St. Mary's. Both have blue in them, but Villanova has two blues. St. Mary's only has one, so Villanova advances. Purdue versus Old Dominion. This one hurts a little bit. Old Dominion is blue and gray. Purdue's black and gold. ODU advances. Cincinnati versus Iowa. Now they're both black. One's black and red, one's black and yellow. So I have to go to the animals. Cincinnati is a bearcat. Iowa is a hawkeye. That's not even a full bird. Cincinnati's at least a mammal. Bearcats advance. And Tennessee versus Colgate. You've got a red team versus the Tennessee Volunteers. And let's see what Colgate's mascot is. Colgate mascot is a raider. That's a person. Tennessee is also a person. Let's go to the color wheel. This is a nice way we can determine who's closer to blue. You got orange way over here. Orange is diametrically opposed to blue. Red's a little bit closer, so Colgate. Now, down to the west, Gonzaga versus Fairleigh Dickinson. They're both blue, but Gonzaga is a bulldog, so Zags. Syracuse versus Baylor. Syracuse does have blue trim. so the Orange advance. Marquette versus Murray State. They are both blue and yellow. Marquette, their mascot, is an eagle. No. Murray State, they're the Racers. Their mascot's a horse, so it's at least a mammal. Murray State. Now Florida State versus Vermont. Vermont has green. Green is closer to blue than red, so Vermont advances. Buffalo versus whoever wins the game tonight between Arizona State and whoever SJU is. Buffalo is all blue, and so I'm just going to go ahead and advance them. And now we get to Texas Tech versus Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky is black and yellow. They're the Norsemen. Texas Tech is black and red. They're the Red Raiders. They're both people, and neither one of them have anything to do with blue. So I'm just going to make an executive decision. Tech advances. Nevada versus Florida. Now, they're both blue, but Nevada is the Wolfpack. Gator, that's not really a mammal. Michigan versus Montana. Michigan blue. Michigan advances. Go blue and maize. Woo, look at that. You're doing well. North Carolina versus Iona. North Carolina has two blues. That's going to play really well for them, I bet. Utah State versus Washington. You have blue Utah State. Moving on. Auburn versus New Mexico State. Again, Auburn, blue. Kansas versus Northeastern. Northeastern appears to be the Huskies. Let's see what Northeastern's color is. Northeastern University. And let's go to Wikipedia. And they're black, gray, and red, so they're not going to go anywhere. Kansas advances. Then we get Iowa State, Ohio State. They're both red. They're a flower, and they're a wind pattern. I'm going to pull the trigger for Ohio State because they have gray, and I think gray is a little bit closer to blue than yellow is. Now we get to Houston and Georgia State. Now, Houston, they're both cats. One's a panther, one's a cougar. But Georgia State is main color blue. Houston's secondary color is blue, so Georgia State advances. And we get to Wofford versus Seton Hall. Wofford is the Terriers. I'd really like to advance them because I like that mascot. It looks pretty cool. But Seton Hall has blue. Blue takes precedence. Then we get to Kentucky versus Abilene Christian. Not really a contest. Kentucky's blue, so they go ahead and advance. Now we come back up to the round of 32. Alright, so let's get into round 2, shall we? Now we've got Duke versus Central Florida. Duke, all blue, they advance. Liberty versus St. Louis. Now they're both blue. St. Louis is the Billikens. That's actually a toy from way back in the beginning of last century. Liberty, they're the Flames. Now their mascot is an eagle, but the team name is the Flames, and so I have to consider, is a dog closer to a toy or to fire? I don't think dogs like fire. I do think dogs like toys. I've seen them like toys. I'm going to go ahead and put St. Louis into the Sweet 16. Good job, guys. All right, now Belmont versus Yale. Now Belmont, they're blue and red, but they're a panther or some sort of tiger. Yale is a bulldog, and they're just blue. Yale. And Minnesota versus Michigan State in a battle of the Big 10 bad boys or whatever. Michigan State's green, Minnesota is red and yellow. Michigan State advances. Now we've got in the South, Virginia versus Ole Miss. Actually, two teams from the South. It doesn't happen too often in this tournament. So we've got both teams are blue. They're actually both Navy, Virginia and Ole Miss. They're both people, the Cavaliers and the Rebels. I guess what we got to do is go to the third tiebreaker, the secondary color. Now, as we saw earlier, orange is diametrically opposed to blue. Red, not as much. So red, slightly closer to blue. Ole Miss advances. Now Oregon versus UC Irvine. Oregon's green and yellow. UC Irvine's blue and yellow. A lot of yellow in this one, but yellow isn't the tie-breaking color. blue is UC Irvine advances. Villanova versus Old Dominion. Now, they're both blue. Villanova's a wildcat, Old Dominion's a monarch. Now, normally here I would say dogs are closer to people than they are to cats because dogs don't like cats all that much, but dogs love people. But I'm actually going to give it to Villanova because they've got 2 blues, and 2 blues trumps 1 blue. Wildcats advance. Now to the other cat, the Bearcat versus Colgate. I think they were the Raiders. You got black and red versus red and black. Cincinnati Bearcats, again, that's a cat, I believe. Sounds like it's cat. Colgate Raider, that's person. Dogs like people more than they like cats. So Colgate. Moving on. Now we go to the West. Gonzaga versus Syracuse. Gonzaga is actually blue. Syracuse is only blue and trim. And Gonzaga is a bulldog. Zags. Murray State versus Vermont. Murray State, the Racers. They're also blue. Vermont, they're the Catamounts. That means a mountain cat. And Vermont also, ironically, means Green Mountain in French. They just go real literal. But Murray State, they're advancing. Now this one hurts even more. Buffalo, Texas Tech. I don't even want to look at it. Buffalo's blue. Whatever. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Nevada versus Michigan. Nevada, blue. Michigan, blue. Nevada's a Wolfpack. Michigan's a Wolverine. A lot of wolf things going on, but Nevada's the actual dog. North Carolina versus Utah State in the Midwest, because North Carolina and Utah State are both in the geographical Midwest of the United States. North Carolina's got 2 blues. Utah State is only blue, but they only have 1 blue. They're both people. North Carolina State. Move on. Auburn versus Kansas. Both blue again. Auburn's a tiger. Kansas is a bird. Now, what do you think dogs are going to like better, cats or birds? I know dogs can get along with cats, but dogs love chasing birds. But I don't think they're really friends with birds. I think they can be friends with cats. So, Auburn. Ohio State versus Georgia State. Ohio State is red, Georgia State's blue. It's an easy one. And Seton Hall versus Kentucky. They're both blue. Seton Hall is a pirate. Kentucky is a cat. And as we know, dogs and cats just don't mix. Pirates, moving on. Arr. And I want to take this time to say that if you like this video, go ahead and give a thumbs up down below. Subscribe, click the bell, turn on notifications, and jump through whatever other hoop YouTube wants you to jump through. Hoops. It's that time, isn't it? And I want you to go down and comment who you think is going to win the national championship this year. It could be based on who you think is the best team, who you think has the best colors, who you think has the best mascot, or what team has the best hairstyle. It really doesn't matter. We're all just guessing at this thing.